I want you to picture, the ideal time to be out in your yard working on the lawn.
Oh, yeah. Usually it's that very first nice weekend.
Right. If you're anything like most people, you're probably imagining that first really nice weekend of spring.
Exactly.
The birds are finally out, the sun is shining, and you're in the driveway mixing up fertilizer, chasing that vivid spring green look.
Yeah, or maybe you're gearing up for the summer battle,
Yeah.
right? Just trying to establish a thick turf before the weeds take over.
Exactly. It just feels instinctively like the right time to, roll up your sleeves and help nature along.
Well, spring visibly feels like the season of rebirth.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you look outside, everything is pushing up new green growth, the trees are budding.
Yeah.
So the logical leap is to assume that this is the moment the plant needs the most human intervention and support.
But today, we are going to challenge that assumption completely because the counterintuitive truth, like the reality hiding literally just under the surface of the dirt, is that the healthiest, greenest spring lawns are actually built in the fall.
They really are.
So we're doing a deep dive into an insightful guide provided by Lawn Pride of North Charlotte. It's titled The Foundation of Fall, Aerating North Carolina Lawns.
It's a great read.
It is. And the mission here is to explore the surprising, bustling underground science of lawn care. We're looking specifically at cool season grasses in North Carolina and uncovering why taking action in the autumn is the ultimate shortcut to a resilient yard next year.
Right, we're going to look past the visible blades of grass, and focus
Yeah.
on a highly complex, hidden ecosystem beneath your feet.
Which is wild to think about.
It is. Because understanding how the soil, the roots, and microscopic organisms all interact, well, it changes the entire approach to lawn maintenance.
I love how this guide completely flips the script on how we manage our weekends. I mean, think about our typical spring lawn care routine.
Wow, it's usually a panic.
Totally. You realize the grass looks a little thin in April, so you run to the hardware store, buy a bunch of products, and just dump them on the yard.
Yeah, and it is essentially like cramming for a final exam the night before.
Yeah. Yes. You're frantically trying to force results at the last minute when the test, which in this case is the summer heat, is already upon you.
Exactly.
What this source material argues, very convincingly I might add, is that we should really be doing all of our studying, all of our hard foundational work in the fall.
And to understand why fall is the actual time to do that studying, we first have to look at the unique physical challenges hiding just beneath the grass.
Right.
It comes down to soil composition.
Mm-hmm.
And for a vast majority of North Carolina, well, those lawns are built on heavy clay soil.
Okay, let's unpack this because I want to push back on the idea of clay being a problem.
Sure.
I've always heard that sandy soil is terrible because water and fertilizer just wash right through it, but clay is incredibly nutrient-rich.
That's true, yeah.
It holds on to everything. So why is this nutrient-dense clay suddenly the villain in the story of our lawns?
Well, the nutrient density is a massive benefit, but clay has a fatal mechanical flaw,
Right.
and it's based entirely on its microscopic structure.
Okay, how so?
If you look at a grain of sand under a microscope, it looks like a tiny, jagged boulder.
Right.
So when you pile sand up, there is plenty of empty space between those boulders for air and water to move.
Makes sense.
Clay particles, on the other hand, are microscopic and incredibly flat. They're almost like tiny plates.
Oh, interesting.
Because they're flat, they stack on top of each other very tightly. So when any pressure is applied to the surface of the yard, those tiny plates compress, and all the microscopic air and water pockets between them simply vanish.
Wow. And reading through this guide, I was struck by how it doesn't take much pressure to compress those microscopic plates. I mean, we aren't talking about parking heavy construction equipment on the front lawn.
Not at all.
The causes of this compaction are shockingly mundane. Simple, everyday foot traffic from kids or dogs running around the yard is enough to flatten those plates.
Yep, absolutely.
Even just the weight of a standard push mower rolling back and forth over the same tracks every single week slowly squeezes the air out of the soil.
And don't forget the rain.
Right. The heavy pounding of a severe torrential summer rainstorm physically beats the soil down. Add in the residual deep layer compaction from when the neighborhood was originally graded and the house was built, and you basically have a completely solid surface.
And the direct biological consequence of all those everyday pressures is that the grass roots become physically trapped.
Trapped.
Yeah, roots cannot penetrate solid matter. So when the soil is severely compacted, the roots hit an invisible wall just an inch or two below the surface.
Wow.
Because they can't dig deeper, they're forced to grow horizontally, just staying trapped in a very shallow layer right at the top of the earth.
It makes me think of someone wearing a tightly laced corset.
That is a great way to look at it.
If the soil is laced up too tight by all that foot traffic and rainfall, the roots are squeezed. They simply can't take a deep breath, and they definitely can't expand their footprint. They're just stuck gasping at the surface.
And a shallow root system in a tight corset is incredibly dangerous for the long-term health of the plant, especially when summer hits.
Because of the heat?
Exactly. The top inch of soil is the first to dry out when the sun starts baking the yard. So if your entire root system is trapped in that top inch, the grass is the first thing to lose moisture.
Which leads to drought stress.
Severe, rapid drought stress. A weak, shallow root system doesn't have the energy reserves to fight off fungal diseases or, withstand extreme heat.
Right.
And that struggling, thin grass leaves plenty of open real estate for opportunistic, deep-rooted weeds to just move in and take over.
So we have this tight clay corset trapping the roots, starving them of water the second the weather gets hot. But the grass is biologically programmed to want to grow deep. It wants to break free.
Yes, exactly.
If the soil is basically concrete in the summer, when is the plant actually going to make its move to expand?
Well, to answer that, we have to define what kind of grass we are actually dealing with in a place like North Carolina.
Okay.
The guide focuses on Tall Fescue, which is a cool season grass.
Right, cool season.
This is fundamentally different from a warm season grass like Bermuda or Zoysia. Warm season grasses thrive in 90-degree heat. They love the middle of July.
Sure, they soak it up.
But cool season grasses like fescue originate from cooler climates. Their peak biological performance happens when temperatures are much milder.
Which means their entire growing season is completely inverted from what a homeowner might expect.
Completely inverted, yes.
We see the leaves growing in the spring, but the roots are operating on a totally different calendar. For these cool season grasses, fall is the primary root growing season of the entire year.
Because the summer for tall fescue is strictly about survival. The high heat of a North Carolina summer is, frankly, a biological emergency for a cool season grass.
Oh, wow, a biological emergency.
Yeah, the plant literally alters its metabolism. It closes its pores to conserve moisture, and root growth comes to an absolute grinding halt.
It just stops.
It stops. Every ounce of energy the plant has is redirected towards simply staying alive until the heat wave breaks.
And here's where it gets really interesting. The transition out of that summer survival mode.
Yeah.
Once September and October roll around, the air temperature drops. The intense heat goes away, and the stress on the plant is suddenly lifted. But the soil itself doesn't cool down at the same rate the air does.
What's fascinating here is how the grass leverages that specific temperature differential.
Oh, so.
Well, the soil's been baking in the summer sun for months, right? Absorbing all that solar radiation. It acts as a massive thermal battery.
Okay.
So in the early fall, you have cool, comfortable ambient air telling the leaves that the stressful heat is gone, combined with wonderfully warm soil deep underground.
It's the perfect recipe for growth. The air is cool, so the plant isn't sweating or struggling, but the warm soil tells the roots it is time to work.
Exactly.
In this specific window, the grass stops worrying about pushing up green blades for us to look at. It completely redirects its energy downward.
And it focuses on producing new roots, pushing existing roots deeper to repair the damage from the brutal summer, and storing up vital carbohydrates.
The storage of those carbohydrates is critical because of what happens next. A lot of homeowners assume that once the frost hits and, the lawnmower is put away for the year, the grass just goes completely dormant and shuts down entirely until the following spring.
It's a very common misconception.
But the guide points out a fact that completely shocked me. Grass roots do not stop growing in the winter.
Nope.
As long as the soil temperature stays above roughly 40 degrees Fahrenheit, those roots are actively moving, expanding, and developing underground.
Because North Carolina experiences relatively mild winters compared to, say, the Northeast or Midwest, the soil temperature frequently stays well above that 40-degree threshold.
Right.
The ground rarely freezes solid for long periods. This means the root systems of your tall fescue are utilizing those stored carbohydrates to continue their slow, steady development all winter long.
Wow.
Every single mild day in January or February is another opportunity for the lawn to build its unseen foundation.
The idea of 40-degree winter root growth totally changes how you look at a quiet, seemingly dead yard in January.
It really does.
The analogy that comes to mind is that this dynamic of warm soil and cool air, it's like deciding to do heavy yard work outside on a brisk, crisp autumn day, but you're wearing a really cozy, heated sweater.
Oh, I love that.
Your face is cool, you aren't sweating, you aren't physically stressed by the sun, but your core is warm, energized, and heavily insulated. It creates the absolute perfect, comfortable conditions to get some serious heavy lifting done without burning out.
The plant has the ideal metabolic conditions and the energy reserves to do the heavy lifting of root expansion. But we have to remember the mechanical flaw of the environment we talked about.
Right, the clay.
The roots have the energy, they have the biological drive in the warm fall soil, but they are still trapped inside that compacted clay corset.
The energy is there, but the physical barrier remains. I mean, trying to grow delicate organic roots in highly compacted clay soil is like a houseplant trying to push its roots through the solid concrete bottom of a pot. It doesn't matter how much fertilizer or energy the plant has, the solid barrier is going to win. So if the plant can't break the corset on its own, how do we physically intervene so the roots can actually utilize this magic autumn growth window?
The most effective intervention is a mechanical process called core aeration.
Okay, aeration.
Instead of just poking tiny holes in the ground or spraying a chemical, core aeration uses specialized heavy machinery to physically extract thousands of small cylindrical plugs of soil directly out of the yard, leaving them to rest on the surface.
If you've ever driven past a house that just had this done, it looks a bit strange. The yard is covered in what look like hundreds of little dirt corks.
Yeah, it can be a little messy for a week or two until they dissolve back into the grass.
But the temporary mess is a small price to pay for the immediate mechanical relief it provides. By physically removing those plugs of dirt, you're creating negative space in the yard.
Exactly.
The tightly squeezed clay plates suddenly have room to relax and shift into the empty holes. You are instantly reducing the crushing pressure of the compaction.
And you're simultaneously creating literal deep channels for oxygen, water, and nutrients to bypass the hard crust of the surface and penetrate directly into the root zone.
We're giving the roots the physical empty space they desperately need to stretch out. But the guide emphasizes that aeration goes far beyond just making physical room for the grass roots.
Oh, absolutely.
It dives deeply into the microbial ecosystem, which sounds incredibly scientific for standard yard work, but it is actually the invisible engine running the entire show.
It really is.
Healthy soil isn't just a collection of dead minerals and dirt, it is teeming with life. There are millions of beneficial microorganisms in every handful of healthy earth.
And this raises an important question. If these microscopic organisms are always down there, why do we need to aerate to help them?
Yeah, why?
The answer lies in their function. These microbes operate like a tiny digestive tract for the soil.
A digestive tract.
Yeah, they are responsible for breaking down complex organic matter, digesting it, and converting it into bioavailable nutrients, like natural nitrogen, that the grass roots can actually absorb and use.
Wow, okay.
They are the workforce that turns sterile dirt into a thriving, self-sustaining soil ecosystem.
But just like the grass roots, those microbes are living organisms. They need oxygen to breathe, metabolize, and survive.
And when clay soil becomes heavily compacted, all the microscopic air pockets are squeezed out. The soil becomes anaerobic, meaning without oxygen.
Right.
In an anaerobic environment, microbial activity slows to an absolute crawl, and many of the beneficial microbes simply die off.
Oh, no.
So core aeration isn't just about punching holes for roots to stretch. It's about opening up ventilation shafts for a suffocating underground workforce.
Yeah.
It's like opening the windows to let a stifled underground ecosystem finally breathe.
And when you flood that root zone with fresh oxygen through those aeration holes, you supercharge the surviving microbes. They rapidly multiply, their metabolism increases, and they get back to work digesting organic matter.
And one of the biggest jobs those newly oxygenated, energized microbes have is dealing with something called thatch.
Thatch. Yeah, the guide talks a lot about that. Thatch is this dense, tangled layer of dead stems, old grass clippings, and organic material that slowly builds up right between the green vegetation and the top of the soil.
That's the one.
The guide notes that a very thin layer of thatch is actually beneficial. It acts like a light protective mulch that keeps the soil cool. But when thatch gets too thick, it becomes a massive liability.
Because excessive thatch weaves together so tightly that it creates a nearly waterproof barrier. It acts just like a thatched roof on a medieval cottage.
That is such a good image.
When you run your sprinklers or apply expensive fertilizer, the water and nutrients hit that thick thatch layer and simply shed away or evaporate before they ever reach the actual soil below.
Oh, man.
The homeowner is spending money and time, but the roots are still starving.
Which explains why so many people get frustrated in the summer. They're watering constantly, but the yard still looks terrible because the water is literally being blocked from entering the dirt.
Exactly.
Core aeration solves this mechanically by punching right through the thatch layer, creating channels for the water, but it also solves it biologically.
Yeah, by pulling those soil plugs up and exposing them to the air,
Yeah.
and by supercharging those oxygen-breathing microbes, the natural decomposition process accelerates.
So the microbes essentially eat away the excessive thatch barrier from the inside out, turning that dead blockade into usable nutrients.
It's a perfect system when it's working right.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener? We have gone in and aggressively opened up the soil with the aerator. We broke the tight clay corset. We let the oxygen rush in. The microbes are happy and actively eating away the thatch barrier.
Right.
And because we did this during the magic window of autumn, the roots take advantage of that warm soil and grow deep, continuing their quiet expansion all through the mild 40-degree winter. How does all of this invisible underground effort actually pay off when the scorching 90-degree summer heat inevitably returns the following July?
Well, the ultimate payoff is drastically improved water management and drought defense.
Okay.
Consider a lawn with a shallow trap root system we described earlier. You can only drink from the top 1 or 2 inches of soil.
Right, because of the corset.
That lawn is entirely dependent on whatever rain fell yesterday, or it requires the homeowner to run the irrigation system constantly to keep that top layer moist.
Which gets expensive.
Very. But when those roots have been allowed to grow 6, 8, or 10 inches deep through the winter, they gain access to a massive, naturally insulated underground reservoir of moisture that doesn't evaporate away when the sun comes out.
The lawn doesn't have to hit the panic button every time it stops raining for a week because it has its own private water supply deep underground.
And the compounding results of that deep root system are remarkable.
Yeah.
The plant experiences significantly less heat stress because its core temperature is regulated by deep soil moisture.
Oh, that makes sense.
It maintains a much richer, greener color during dry spells while the neighbor's shallow-rooted lawn turns brown. And if the lawn does suffer damage from extreme weather, the massive carbohydrate reserves stored in that deep root system allow it to recover much faster once the conditions improve.
We have to connect this to the reality for homeowners living in North Carolina. This isn't just about having a prettier yard. It is about practical resource management.
Absolutely.
With increasing periods of intense summer drought and municipalities frequently enforcing strict watering restrictions, you cannot always rely on the sprinkler system to save a dying lawn.
No, you can't.
A deep, established root system is the absolute best, most reliable long-term defense against those unpredictable conditions. Fall aeration isn't just another annoying chore on a weekend checklist. It is an active preventative insurance policy against next summer's heat waves.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it is amazing how one single mechanical service addresses an entire cocktail of unique regional challenges. North Carolina homeowners are fighting heavy clay soil, incredibly hot summers that trigger plant dormancy, torrential heavy rainfall that causes further soil compaction, and occasional severe drought.
It's a lot.
It is a lot. But core aeration directly targets the physical root cause of how all those environmental factors damage the turf rather than just treating the surface symptoms.
And there's one final piece to this puzzle that the Lawn Pride Guide highlights, and it is a crucial step for anyone whose yard took a beating over the summer: overseeding.
Oh, yeah. Very important.
If you have thin, patchy areas or bare dirt spots, fall aeration creates the absolute perfect, custom-made environment for planting new grass seed.
Because throwing expensive grass seed onto hard, compacted dirt is a recipe for failure.
Right, it just sits there.
The seed just sits on the hard surface. It bakes and dries out in the sun, hungry birds eat it, or the first heavy rainstorm washes it completely away into the street gutter.
What a waste.
But the holes created by an aerator provide flawless seed-to-soil contact.
The holes act like tiny protective incubators for the new seed.
Exactly. When a seed falls down into an aeration hole, it is sheltered from the wind and hidden from birds. It rests at the bottom of a channel where moisture naturally collects, surrounded by loose, oxygen-rich, warm soil.
That's perfect.
It really is. It provides the ideal microclimate for a fragile new grass seedling to germinate rapidly and establish a strong initial root system before the winter cold arrives.
The guide specifically notes that for tall fescue lawns in places throughout the region, like Charlotte, Huntersville, Mount Holly, Cornelius, and Davidson, combining core aeration with overseeding in the fall is the proven professional recipe.
It's the gold standard.
By dropping seed into those aerated holes, you're creating the thickest, most resilient turf possible by the time spring rolls around.
You're leveraging a compounding effect. You are relieving the mechanical stress on the existing mature grass, giving its roots room to breathe, while simultaneously giving thousands of new seeds the highest possible chance of survival.
Yeah.
By the time that warm spring sunshine finally hits, the lawn is already fully established. It is thick, healthy, and perfectly positioned to crowd out and outcompete any early spring weed seeds trying to find sunlight.
It really changes your entire perspective on yard work and the concept of seasons. I mean,
Right.
healthy, vibrant spring lawns don't begin when you buy that first bag of fertilizer in March and start frantically watering.
No, they don't.
They begin right now in the fall when the air gets crisp. By actively giving your lawn the physical space it desperately needs to build a stronger foundation today, you are setting it up for year-round health.
And it is a powerful reminder that true, lasting growth almost always happens in the dark places we can't see, long before any of the beautiful results are visible on the surface. The foundation dictates the resilience of the entire structure. If you ignore the hidden microbial ecosystem and the mechanical health of the soil, you'll spend your entire spring and summer constantly fighting a losing battle against symptoms.
Right.
You'll be endlessly spraying weeds, treating fungal brown patches, and pouring water on shallow roots, instead of simply treating the actual cause of the vulnerability.
Which leaves us with a final lingering question to think about today, beyond just the grass in our yards.
Oh, I like where this is going.
We've just spent all this time learning that a living thing thrives best when we stop forcing immediate surface-level results and instead focus our efforts entirely on its hidden underground foundation during a period of supposed dormancy.
Yeah.
So how might that same biological principle apply to our own lives? During our own periods of personal or professional downtime, when it feels like we aren't visibly producing, achieving, or growing for the world to see, are we taking the time to aerate our own minds?
That's deep.
Are we actively breaking up our own compacted, high-pressure routines, letting our ideas breathe, and quietly investing in our unseen roots before demanding our next season of visible growth?
It's a profound thought to end on. We often treat ourselves with the exact same impatience we use on a struggling spring lawn. We demand immediate, visible, vibrant results from ourselves without putting in the quiet, restorative, foundational work beforehand.
Exactly.
Mhm.
So maybe next time you find yourself cramming for a deadline or trying to force a major result in the spring of your life, remember the clay corset. Remember the roots slowly expanding in the cool fall dirt. Sometimes the most important, resilient growth is the kind nobody else can see until the heat is on.
Thank you for listening to the Pain in the Grass podcast, sponsored by Lawn Pride of North Charlotte, Huntersville, your go-to name in turf care for homeowners and businesses seeking beauty, quality, and reliability, powered by family and fueled by passion. Until next time, make sure to take care of that pain in the grass.